On today's episode 17 of SculptNCreate, I'm sitting down with someone who has traveled the world and gone deep into the workings of the human mind, not in theory, but through experience. Our guest is Kam Knight, international speaker, mentor, and the author of over a dozen books, who is best known for unpacking one of the realest struggles creatives face, internal resistance. You know that thing where you want to do the thing, you know what to do, you have the motivation, and yet something in you still pulls you back. Kam's journey started with that same question. Despite wanting more, striving for more, he found himself hitting the same invisible wall over and over, and he became obsessed with figuring out why. That obsession led him to travel to over 100 countries, study thought patterns, behavioral loops, and emotional programming, and ultimately develop the concept of internal resistance. The force inside us that fight our growth even when we consciously want it. And get this, he hasn't watched a movie in 10 years or a TV show in almost 15 because he's been fully tapped into mental performance, clarity, and expanding human potential. Today, he's been helping break through the emotional blocks behind self-sabotage, especially the deep ones like shame, guilt, regret, and feeling not enough. This conversation is for every artist, creative, entrepreneur, or dreamer who knows they're capable of more and wants to understand what's really been holding them back. Let's get into it. This is episode 17 of SculptNCreate with Kam Knight. Welcome to SculptNCreate, where fitness fuels creativity and helping artists, entertainers, and creatives towards their physical, personal, and career growth. I'm your host, Trey the Fit Artist, and who I have with me is Kam Knight. He's a mentor, international speaker, and author. Welcome to the show, Kam.
Thank you for having me, Trey. Really happy to be here.
Man, I'm glad you can make it, man. And before we get into it, man, shout your sites out, your links, and so forth, so everybody can find you and maybe partake in your services.
All right, great. So I'll just throw it out really quick. My name is Kam Knight. I'm a mentor, international speaker, and author of a dozen books in the area of mental, physical, as well as emotional performance. Now I talk about a concept called internal resistance, which answers a question I had my whole life, which is, why is it if I want to do something, I know what to do and I know how to do it, and I have the motivation and desire to do it, but for one reason or another, I can't or don't do it. If people want to reach my books and the course, they can just go to kamknight.com, KAMKNIGHT.com. And I do this awesome one-on-one work where I take people into their unconscious mind. And they can find me they can email me at mentor@kamknight.com.
Okay, cool. Y'all check Kam out. And man, let's get into it, man. So Tell us, we're going to go all over the board, but we want to start here. Tell us about, you kind of said it just then, but tell us about who you are, what you do, and then we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good. Growing up, I had parents who were kind of strict and had a lot of expectations for me. What they call it is high expectations, low support. And in many ways, I grew up on television. So my brain learned that my value was dependent on the car I was driving, the house I was living, the amount of my bank account, and so forth. So early on, I felt this need or drive to be successful. And I had aspirations to go to an Ivy League school or college. Although I went to a decent college, it wasn't Ivy League. I wanted to work at a Big Five accounting firm. At the time, it was Big Five, now it's Big Four. Although I got a good accounting job, it wasn't with one of the prestigious firms. When I first wanted to write a book, it took much longer than it should have. And these were some of the major goals and aspirations I had. But I also had little ones too, like working out, getting fit, and all of that stuff. And as much as I wanted to do something, I either wouldn't start. If I started, I would stop before making progress. If I managed to make progress, I would sabotage myself before getting to the end. And if I didn't sabotage, by the time I got to the end, I didn't keep doing what got me there, so I lost it. And I always wondered why that was. Why is it if I want to do something, I know what to do and I have the motivation, but why can't I do it? And at the time, there were no clear answers. So the best answers that I got were limiting beliefs, so that you need motivation and discipline. And although those are pieces of the puzzle, I felt like there was more to it. And over the last 15 to 20 years, that question always lingered in my mind. Every time I felt stuck, I wondered why. Why can't I get stuff done? Why do I keep spinning my wheels? Why don't I just do this dang thing and get the result that I want? And the more coaching I did, seminars I attended, and books I read, the more I learned about the complexities of the human brain. And over time, I began to realize, hey, wait a minute. There's a part of our mind designed to hold us back. There's a part of our brain built to keep us from growing and making progress. And I call this part internal resistance. And it's this brick wall that we hit anytime that we want to do something, but we can't, no matter how much we want to do it.
Okay. All right. So definitely you can expound on that
Yeah,
where I like when we think about the artist entertainer, somebody or just in a sense somebody going for a dream
yeah,
or a goal that they want to achieve, and they know it in their heart they want to do it. They probably don't research steps and stuff like that to do it and so forth, but something again, like you said, eternally resist
yeah,
them to act upon it. Now it could be, like I know you're gonna get in the deeper of it for
yeah,
as the mental and maybe emotional space state to it, but it could be finances, it could be uh family ties and so forth, whatever that case may be, and they they just don't go forward for it. But still, I think even with that going on, I think it's still like they could still do what they want to do, but they still don't go after it.
yeah,
So talk about that. Why do they have this internal resistance?
yeah. So I will start by saying that artists and entertainers tend to have a lot more internal resistance than the average person because in order to make a living being an artist and entertainer, we have to put ourselves out there. We can't just go to a job, do our work, get a paycheck, and come home. We create, and then we need to have people see our creation. So we need to expose that creation. And unfortunately, that's not easy because that means we have to receive feedback and criticism. And for some people, feedback and criticism is painful. It's extremely painful. In fact, being an author of a dozen books, I have met a lot of authors, some very successful, some whose names you would recognize, who have a hard time reading reviews on their books. In fact, they won't even read their own reviews. They have somebody else read it for them. Why? Because feedback can be painful. And at least for artists, this is one of the biggest reasons for resistance. And the way the brain works is that it puts more weight on the negative than the positive. So we can have like 10 or 100 people say our work is good, but for the artist, their brain worries about that one person who might say it's not good. And that one person's opinion or view or feedback can outweigh, like I said, 100 to even more people saying it's good. And it could be so painful that they don't put themselves out there. And unfortunately, I've met a lot of artists who are very talented, but they don't really move anywhere or go anywhere in life because of just this one aspect of resistance, which is the pain they experience from the feedback. So they limit themselves in a lot of ways by kind of not exposing themselves. And as a result, they don't get the success that they desire. But I do want to reiterate that resistance comes up for a lot of reasons. But since we are talking specifically about artists and entertainers, one of them, there can be more, is how sensitive that artist is to the feedback and criticism of other people. The more sensitive they are, the harder it is for them to not only start the work, but stick with the work. And even when they finish it, to put it out there.
Yeah. Just like I might be butchering a little bit, but just like Erica Badu, in the words of us, he said, "I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit." you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So they say that a lot, and
Yeah.
I have heard people like T Pain. He said that too. You can have everybody praising you, 1,000 plus comments saying this and that, but that one comment,
Yeah.
this person, black, you want to see where they family, where they live, and just really annihilate them in some kind of way, man. And it
Yeah.
goes to that. So yeah, I can definitely see the connection of with where somebody who hasn't even put themselves out there like that,
Yeah.
that they could be hesitant in that manner. And then it don't even have to be with the artist entertainer. That's just for like anything that you're looking to achieve. It can be some
Yeah.
a job on it could be going for that entrepreneurial business that you want to start,
Yeah.
or some kind of position you want to get ahead in life. And I think that goes to that where people like have some kind of resistance in with themselves. And I battle with it from time to time again, and I
Yeah.
have to talk myself out of it and so forth. And I think too, a little bit of it comes with I want to be perfect.
Yeah.
Speaking for myself, I'm a bit of a perfectionist,
Yeah.
and then that ends up being where you don't make that star. So could that be part of it, of the internal resistance, where it's some deep rooted like that, where you want to
Yeah.
be right, but that and that leads to inaction too as well.
Yeah, I think perfection is a really great topic because it's
Hmm.
how resistance manifests.
Right.
And I do want to rip on some of the stuff that you said prior to that, which is this isn't just for artists or entertainers. It really is for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
people who want to find a new job or start a business. I come across a lot of talented people who are very skilled in what they do and have a lot of passion. Yet there are people who are far skilled and have far less passion doing better than them. And it really comes down to they're too afraid to receive the judgment of others. And so they do limit themselves. And it is kind of unfortunate because you have people who are actually the ones that have the skill not getting the success only because they're just have this sensitivity to what people think. Now, perfection is a very interesting point. I talk about a concept called tricks of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we have resistance or when our brain is trying to hold us back, it doesn't tell us that it's holding us back or it doesn't give us a reason why. It doesn't say, hey, Trey, you know that thing that you're trying to do? Well, we're kind of afraid of what people will think of it. So, we're just going to sit here and do nothing. Or that habit of yours that you want to build, well, it goes against our self image. So we're just going to sit here and watch television. Nope, that's not what happens. Resistance manifests other ways. In fact, it uses a lot of tricks and it has all sorts of tricks up its sleeve to keep us from making progress. And one of those tricks is perfectionism because as long as we're putting all our time in trying to perfect this thing, we're not putting any time in getting it out there and giving it exposure or taking the next step. And as a result, we create a bottleneck for ourselves in the perfection. And the reason we go into perfection is that we're trying to make sure that everyone loves it, that there's no way that no one can say anything bad about it. And so, in a way, we're trying to defend ourselves from any sort of feedback and criticism. And again, it comes down to how sensitive someone is to feedback and criticism. There's a lot of artists out there, and I'm sure you and your audience know of them, who aren't that good, but they do well. And the reason they do well is because they're not afraid of the people who are criticizing their work. It kind of rolls off their back or doesn't even affect them. And they just focus on the people who do like their work. But the people who do fall into perfectionism tend to be the ones who are, like I said, sensitive to what people are going to say or think about their work. So they want to make it so good that no one can say anything bad. And unfortunately, it's impossible to do that. There's so many people in this world with so many beliefs, and they get stimulated by different things that there's no way to please everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And if we try to please everyone, at the end of the day, we just kind of burn ourselves out doing it.
Yeah.
But if we can come from a perspective like, hey, not everyone's going to like my work. People I know will probably not like my work. Some people
Mm-hmm.
may even laugh at my work,
Yeah.
but there will be enough people that will like it. And I'll just focus on that. So this is kind of how perfectionism plays in.
Yeah, definitely. And I do hear a lot of artists and entertainers like in the arts and so forth. It's subjective. I
Yeah,
hear that a lot. Be thrown around. What this person like when we talk about comedy, what this person like think is funny might not be funny to the next person,
yeah,
you know, and so forth. So you really just got to speak to your people, kind of like be good first and foremost. You know, you got to
yeah,
make sure if you're making music, got to make quality music. If you're an actor, got to
yeah,
be a good actor first and foremost. But at the same time, I think it goes to with a little bit of branding too. You got to know who you reaching and so forth.
exactly.
You know, and then there's go with the entrepreneurship as well. You know who you're talking to and speaking to, because not everybody is going to work for. And you trying to
Exactly.
be, and again, like you said, trying to be everything to everybody or be a people pleaser, and so in some aspect, it definitely diminishes you and where you can't
Yes.
create, don't want to create, or don't want to step out there and do the thing that you said you want to do, and you know that
Yeah.
goes from there. I know me as a online fitness coach and trainer, I used to go live a lot and everything.
Yeah.
I didn't really even think about at the time. Now I'm still a perfectionist now, but you know, but I didn't really when I was going live, I didn't really think about how I was looking at in that instant. It was other things I'd be perfectionist on,
Yeah.
but I came to realize that other trainers and so forth don't go live because of that reason. They don't want.
Yeah.
What if I say the wrong thing? What do I say? And
Yeah.
and then they don't do it at all. I got a colleague like that now. He's starting to post more and everything, but I remember him in the beginning, he wouldn't do any of that, you know, and so forth. Well, he still don't go live to this day. He still posts a little bit, so he getting out there a little bit more. But the live thing, he won't do it too much.
Yeah.
But why? So, and we identifying like what's going on, but how can that person, like say, artist, entertainer, entrepreneur, somebody going for a dream or goal, how can they identify? Because I remember you saying sometimes they not the body is not or
It doesn't
mind
tell
or
them.
it doesn't tell them. So how can they identify it?
Yeah. So this is first, it kind of helps to understand how resistance work. But just to kind of preface the answer, it's not a very easy thing to do because there's a lot of causes of resistance. And some of them you couldn't intuitively know that that's your reason for resistance. In fact, some causes one needs to understand the mind and body at a level much deeper than most therapists and coaches. I've been doing this work for a long time. This is why I've kind of got into some of like the deeper reasons of it. So I don't want to kind of help people think that, oh yeah, it's like a simple thing. If it was a simple answer, then I would be a billionaire right now. Yeah. But I will kind of help people, give some good tips that can really help them understand their causes of resistance. But it helps to understand that the part of the brain that creates wants and desires, it works separate from the part that allows us to act on the desire. So this is really important, Trey. The part of our brain that creates the desire to go out and have a business or create art and be successful operates differently from the part of the brain that actually says, okay, Trey, you can go ahead and do that. And the part that says, okay, Trey, you can go ahead and do that, it actually filters that desire using a whole host of criteria. So if you have a desire to, let's say, grow your business, the other part of the brain will say, all right, well, what's my beliefs about this? Are my habits in line? Is this going to take me out of my comfort zone? Those are some of the commonly known reasons for resistance. And if we don't have the beliefs, if we don't have the habits, then the brain will put the brakes on that decision. But some of these reasons go even deeper. One reason for resistance is self image. That is, many people have created a self image of themselves as either being cool, smart, tech savvy, or that they're this great artist or comedian, or they have this great story. But oftentimes they won't put themselves out there or apply themselves because if things don't go well, they have to face the fact that they're not this great self image they created for themselves. So oftentimes it's easier to not do the thing and hold on to that self image than to actually do it and face the possibility of proving that self image wrong. So if the brain feels that doing what we're doing, going after that want may confront our self-image, it'll put the brakes on that decision. Another reason resistance comes up, and this doesn't get talked about it, but it's actually quite prevalent, especially in our culture, has
Mm,
to do with authority issues. And
okay.
authority issues relate to our unconsciously held attitudes toward authority figures such as parents, principals, priests, police officers, and even personal development mentors and coaches like ourselves. So I'm going to extend that definition to anyone who tells us or makes us feel obligated to do something. So what happens, Trey, is as we're growing up, if we had people around us always telling us what to do and how to do it, and what not to do and how not to do it, over time the brain gets fed up and doesn't want to do anything and doesn't want to listen to them. And when we grow up, even though we may want to do that thing, that authority issue response still comes up and we can't do it. Only because we have resentment from the people in our past and we don't want to give them satisfaction. So the brain will keep us from chasing our own desire
Okay.
just to not give others the satisfaction of telling us what to do. So it gets pretty complicated, like I said. So, how can someone find out what their resistance is? One simple way is to create a self talk statement. Something, since we're talking about artists and trainers, let's just
Entertainers.
say, yeah, entertainers. Let's say artist wants to know what their resistance is. They might create a statement like, I am an excellent artist. People love and rave about my work. So they would repeat that statement over and over. And as they repeat that statement, their mind will react to that statement. It might say things like, no, you're not. You're a terrible artist. Or your work's not good. No one's going to like it. Or it might actually create pictures, images of people in their lives who they feel might put their work down. And
Okay.
all of those are signs of your resistance. If your
Okay.
brain is saying you're not a good artist, it's what you truly feel. That's your belief. Deep down, your belief is I'm not a good artist. You say things like people are gonna like my work or people rave about my work, and there's like feelings of fear coming up, or there's doubt that people will actually like your work. Well, that's a sign of what you deep down feel about being successful as an artist. If you have images of people coming up saying negative things, that's also a reason for your resistance, that the brain fears that people will not like it or will say negative things about it and say all of these things. So that's a really quick and dirty way to figure out what our resistance are. Again, this topic goes deep because the human brain is extremely complex,
Mm,
though this is actually a good way to uncover things that maybe might be very difficult to access otherwise.
okay. And so basically, like I said, it definitely could be different avenues, but two of them that stood out is one, it could be a traumatic response to something, whether it be
Yeah,
something in your childhood or something that happened earlier. Somebody laughed at you because you said this particular joke when you went on stage and okay,
yeah,
I ain't gonna do it no more, and stuff like that.
exactly.
Now I'm thinking about it. What's his name? Marlon Wayans.
Yeah,
He was talking about that. He initially had started to do stand up way early on, and I think he said Chris Rock was in the audience and stuff like that, just ragging on him and everything like that. So he did bad and bombed on that set. It sunk him down where he didn't want to do it no more for a while until he
yeah,
got the courage up to do so and everything. So I think that speaks on what you were talking about on the trauma aspect of it,
yeah,
even though he don't seen it over and over with his brothers doing it and the people his brother was around doing it successfully, he seen innately. In one essence, he said, I was able to become a star because I seen my brothers do it. But at the same time, he seen with comedy, even though he seen them do it too, that bad experience he had with it, he like got off of it for a second, and
yeah,
everything because of the bad performance that he had and so forth. So I think that's interesting in itself. Like in some instances, it clicked with him where he jumped out of there, but in other instances, he revert back.
yeah,
The other thing that you said about two is it really just starts with what you're telling yourself. First and foremost, now it could be nothing intrinsic or outside entities influencing your decisions or why you don't take action, but it's also what you're telling yourself. Like, is you really good enough? Will everybody like me? And, so the imposter syndrome, like you said, and the fear of just of the unknown and everything like that. I don't spoke it out into existence, and then if I don't make it, then I'm ridiculed and thinking I'm gonna be made fun of. So
Yeah.
I think those are very important to speak on.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I do want to start by saying that much of our resistance comes from the past. Almost all of it has to do with our experiences in the past. So if we had a challenging upbringing where we didn't have good parents that encourage us, or if we had the quite opposite, where they kind of were very negative and harsh towards us and we didn't have a lot of support, the mind is gonna go in the direction of assuming the worst. And it's going to assume that we're not going to be able to do things, we're not going to be able to be successful, and then it becomes extremely challenging. So when resistance does come up, it usually has to do with past experiences. And what's really interesting, Trey, is that a lot of our past is in our unconscious mind.
Okay.
And we don't actually get to see how our unconscious activity affects our conscious thoughts and thinking. Much of our unconscious is hidden from us, which is why it's called the unconscious mind. And so it's hard to actually connect to what about our past is actually creating the resistance. And you talked about the talking. The talking is really important, not just to help us see what about our past is affecting our present,
Mm,
meaning if we start saying these positive statements and our mind starts retorting and saying the opposite, then we can know that, oh, wow, I've got a lot of inner stuff that is going to get in the way of me moving forward. But the great thing is, we can continue saying those positive things. And as we continue saying it, over time, the negative reaction tends to subside and it tends to go away. And if we keep on continuing to say the positive, that starts to seep into our mind and starts to reprogram us to be able to move forward more easily. So the next time we do have a decision, we don't have to go through all of this like heartache and heartbreaks and resistance to push ourselves through because now we have better programming. And it can really start as simple as the words we say to ourselves. I'm an excellent artist. People rave about my work, and then we can go more on into the details of what we could say. I get assignments and contracts easily, things like that. And
mm,
as we say it, it starts to kind of show up in our lives. But one thing I do want to add to it is encouragement is really important because, as I said, the way our brain works, it puts more weight on the negative than the positive. And in your example of Marlon Wayne, he had this negative experience, and that could have been the end of that. One bad experience can really put a hold on us. It could be like a ball and chain that makes it tough to move forward. But luckily, he had some positive models in his brothers. And luckily, they weren't just some random people like friends or acquaintances. They were actually people he was close to. So his brain was able to be like, okay, I made a mistake, but it is possible to move forward. And he was able to do that. And so for him, his encouragement was seeing his brothers.
mm,
Now, for a lot of us, we may not have such an encouragement. So we need to be the ones encouraging ourselves. And the distinction I want to make is it's not so much about positive thinking, because that's helpful, but it's really about the positive self talk. It's actually repeating the statements. I am
okay.
an excellent artist. People rave about my work. I get contracts easily. Actually repeating it either in your head and out loud and saying it over and over. In fact, those are the things I say to myself all the time. When I wake up in the morning, I'm repeating positive talk. When I'm in the
Mm,
shower, I'm repeating positive talk. When I'm in the car driving, I'm repeating positive talk. When I'm cooking, cleaning, I'm just running in my head, making sure I'm kind of giving myself the encouragement that the brain needs. And the encouragement piece is really important because even though we may not have a rough upbringing, if we don't have an encouraging upbringing, then the brain defaults to the negative. So we still need positive. We don't just want to remove the negative, we still want to add the positive because the brain does like to be affirmed. And the more affirmed it gets, the easier it is for it to do things and the less resistance it creates. And going back to what I was saying, if we don't have people affirming us or the way that we want, all is not lost. We can still affirm ourselves. And this is a great way to do it.
Now, as a fitness coach and trainer, encounter a lot of people who looking to lose weight or have a certain aesthetic, and I mean, like for us with art entertainers as well. Do you think that the same thing that you're talking about for as internal resistance, it could be outliers very busy, and they kind of get they on the road, they schedules have them going every which way or whatever. But do you think that they internal resistance keep them from doing something for is with their fitness and health as well, like and not just the artists and trainers, but just people that in general? Do you
Yeah,
think it's an
yeah.
internal resistance there, and if so, what would you say that is?
100%. If we're not able to do something that we want, it's usually because of something internal going on. And I talked about the tricks of resistance. A lot of times, internal resistance tricks are so good, it could make us think that our challenges is with the outside world. It's because of the people we're around, it's because of our environment, it's because our mommy and daddy didn't love us. So then we think, oh, we can't be successful. But that's just a trick internal resistance is using so you don't do the thing. But it's usually what's going on internally. And again, there's a lot of reasons for internal resistance. I talked about a few of them, such as beliefs. If a person doesn't believe they can lose weight, or if a person doesn't believe they should lose weight, if they have feelings of undeserving, then those parts of themselves will stop them from actually achieving the goal they want with their weight and health. Again, it comes down to habits. If a person has not so positive habits, like they come home after work and turn on the TV, well, that's not going to be conducive to the healthy lifestyle that they're going after. They're going to need to work on building that habit. But in doing so, the old habits are going to try to pull them back into their old ways because that's what habits are designed to do. They're designed to keep us in a pattern of routine or behavior. Even if the pattern of routine or behavior isn't healthy, if we get habituated to it, that's what the habit's going to try to reinforce. Same thing with comfort zones. Comfort zone is actually a topic that gets talked about a lot, but not so much on a deeper level. Like the brain loves the familiar. It
Mhm.
loves knowing what it knows. And when it has to move outside to do something it doesn't know, it freaks out. Even if what it needs to learn, it's going to be healthy and beneficial and actually key to the survival. The part of the brain will always try to hold them back into the familiar.
Mhm.
And so when a person is trying to move into uh, a, a, a new size, new weight, new muscle tone, or whatever, it's
Mhm.
unknown to the brain.
Right.
Although logically it makes sense, hey, this is going to be good for me. A part of the brain goes, well, I don't really know if it's going to be good. And that part's going to hold them back. And again, when our brain holds us back, it doesn't tell us it's holding us back. We just feel
Mhm.
oftentimes this feeling that we can't move forward or like we're pushing against an invisible wall. Or
Mhm.
sometimes the tricks show up other ways, like I said, perfectionism, trying to blame the outside world instead of taking responsibility and things of that nature. But it can go even deeper.
Mhm.
A lot of times, people who have had a lot of trauma or have had negative experiences from their past, ends up happening in their brain is that they have a logic that gets created that people equals danger.
Mhm.
And when that logic gets created, their brain tries to keep them from too much attention or too much exposure of people. And unfortunately, success, whether that's in our physical health and weight, or in our artistry or in business, means more people are going to find out about us and see our work, and we're going to get
Mhm.
more exposure.
Yeah.
So for a person who unconsciously feels like people equals danger, their brain is going to sabotage them from having that success again, whether it's with weight loss, whether it's with some of the other goals that they have that I mentioned,
Mm,
because it just means, okay, now I'm going to be around people and this is too much. So I'm just going to secretly sabotage you so you don't make the progress that you desire. Again, another reason for resistance. And it goes deep. Sometimes authority issues come into play because if we were growing up and we had parents telling us that we should eat healthy or not to do junk food or watch so much television, and our brain builds resentment, then as an adult, we'll continue eating unhealthy
mhm.
or doing unhealthy things just to spite the people that told us that it was good for us. So even as an adult, if we want to take positive moving forward action, we can't because this authority response kicks in and tells us, or not tells us, but actually forces us to not go in that direction. So
Okay.
there's a lot of things that are at play that
Yeah.
makes change hard. And I will add one more thing to this because this is really important. And I'm going to go against the grain of a lot of personal development. So a lot of personal development has a lot of motivational and inspirational content.
Mhm.
It says things like you can do it, anything's possible, you have unlimited potential. And in many ways it's true, but it's still very difficult to create change.
Mm.
And the older that we get, the harder it becomes. And I don't want people to think that, hey, just because I heard someone talk about moving forward, having a good life, that I'm just going to be able to do it. There's going to be challenges that come up, and a lot of it's going to be all internal. And it takes work to push through those challenges. So, yeah, I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. Yeah. When you was talking about the eating for us, like things, I always talk about certain things like for his childhood obesity and the way we eat, the way we have ate as a child, or the habits and routines around eating as a child, definitely goes into how we take that in as an adult, you know,
Yeah,
if we don't make any changes and stuff like that.
yeah,
I've always stated that, and that we need to, like, for as our kids, we need to like teach them a certain way to eat and so forth. But I didn't think about that part. What you said, you can that our habits coming in as adult, sometimes it can be in spite
yes.
of that, not just what our environment taught us. It can be in spite of, we doing this in spite, and so that's a whole different level. So I like that you said that.
It's a whole
Uh,
different level and it's
right.
affecting a lot of us and we don't even realize it. So yeah, I'm glad that you honed in on that because it's
Yeah.
really key.
Yeah,
Go
definitely.
ahead.
And the comfort zone. It was another thing that you mentioned with that. Now you heard of the setting saying the comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there.
Yes.
There's a saying out there like that. And I always say, the comfort zone. You gotta step out your comfort zone. I use that in terminology with my clients and so forth. But I didn't really think. But I didn't really connect the two with saying that when you plateau, your body plateauing and so forth. I give the example of your body wants to be in a sense of normalcy that it will never have.
Yeah.
And that's another way of saying it's in the comfort zone. So,
It is.
but and then when you said about basically where you do something different, it goes into shock, and that's how you get out that plateau and everything and so forth. But you scrambling and all of that. But the way you go in that initial shock to take it out of fitness is the key, really. Now,
Yeah.
once you start doing something different. I believe people teeter totter out there. They start doing something different. It gets scary. It gets weird, not
Yes.
normal, and they ain't used to this. So yeah, they revert back
Yeah.
to to that comfort zone, and not realizing that, or maybe they do realize that the change is on the other side of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
So they gotta change to see a change.
Yeah.
You know.
And there is a bit of a pendulum swing. So we start making progress and we get over to the other side and then we revert back. And then we start making progress, we go to the other side, and then we revert back, but not as far back or not as hard. And then we kind of go back. So it does help for some people to know that their progress is not going to be linear. It's not going to be okay, I
Definitely.
want to go from A to B and I
Right.
should just get to B.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, well, I get halfway to B and then I come back and then I go a little bit further than B and I regress, but not as bad. And it'll be a little bit more. And if they can be open to that, then it'll create less frustration and less feelings of, I can't do anything right. What's wrong with me? Because a lot of times people have these false expectations when they're trying to create change. They think it should be easy and linear, and when it's not, then they beat themselves up and then they give up. But when they can be aware from the onset that, hey, there's a good chance, although it seems easy right now, I'm going to hit up against a wall that's going to be very difficult. As long as I'm aware of that, then when I do hit up that wall, I won't get deflated in my inspiration, let's say, because I'm expecting it. And in fact, sometimes when we are expecting a wall and it comes up, it's not as bad just because we were aware that it was going to come up and we knew how to handle it. It's usually the people who just think it's going to be easy or it should be easy or it should be easy for them that really struggle and don't make the progress. So, yeah. Another thing I want to mention is that when we're trying to move a
Took a
different
breath on
direction,
that.
yeah, this is really important because I've
Right.
experienced this a lot. When we're trying to just move in a different direction, whatever that is, like I said, it could be diet, it could be business, it could be art, whatever moves us out of where we are currently, it does require pushing through old beliefs, old habits, old comfort zones, um, letting go of our self image, putting our authority issues to the side, as well as the other reasons of resistance that come up. And resistance is always going to fight against our efforts. Like it'll fight with our efforts until the day you die. Meaning, as we're making progress and we're making too much progress, resistance will put a last ditch effort resort to like fight to push against it. And sometimes those feelings are awful. It just feels really dark and morbid. We can go through some really dark, painful, morbid times. And
Mhm.
although those feelings make it seem like we're regressing or things aren't working and we're not moving forward, the reality is those feelings are a sign that things are working, you are moving forward, and things
Yeah.
are going to happen as long as you keep doing what you're doing. But as soon as we let those feelings stop us from doing what we're doing, then we do regress. So it's really important to understand. I think the best way to summarize what I just said is expectations are really important. When we can expect and prepare for what's going to come, then it's a lot easier to move forward. But when we get there, when we're not expecting it and it hits us, it could really take us off guard. So I do want to reiterate that one, the path is not linear. There's going to be quite a bit of back and forth, and it's
Yeah.
normal. And it's normal for everybody. Almost all of us go through it, even these high achievers. And two, we're going to hit up moments where it's just going to be, I don't know what a better word to use, but dark. And
Mhm.
people, when they get to that point, they'll know exactly what I mean when they do. Not everyone will get to that point.
Right.
And you made a comment about plateaus. Plateaus are interesting because there was a guy named Mikhail, he wrote a book talking about flow, I think. And he talked about the concept of mastery. And what he said is mastery, it isn't linear. You are actually on plateaus for quite a bit of time. And then you're on the plateau and then you get to the next level. And then you stay on the plateau for a little bit and then you get to the next level. And every time you go from one plateau to the next, that's when resistance puts its last ditch effort to make sure you stay in that plateau. And that's when things seem more difficult, like
Mhm.
things aren't working. Why am I doing this? And we start questioning ourselves. And those feelings, again, seem like we're not making progress, but it's really, we are making progress and we have to keep at it because we're at the cusp of the next plateau. And these are some of the things that make growth and being human challenging because it's hard to know when we're actually growing or when we're making progress and when we're need to actually shift. And so, yeah, I hope that wasn't too confusing. I hope that made sense.
No, I get it perfectly, man. Like say when you going like when you was talking about going for your goal, it's kind of the old adage is the only time you should be looking back is to see how far you have gone,
Yes.
and instead of looking at where you are now, look how far you have overcame or where you are, look how far you have
Yeah.
overcame, and so forth. To that, and then when you say the darkness and so forth, or when you get to a certain level, like we talking about with a plateau as well, and then other instances that keeping you from getting to the next level. So I hear people talk about that too as well. Do you think could some of it be like let's say for instance, Ars Entertainment, they successful, they got some notoriety, they got some accolades under their belt and so forth. Do you think it get to a point where they get to like a sort of survivor success guilt type of ordeal that might can make them self-sabotage or and everything like that, or not get to the next level or stop or whatever? I see you smiling, I'm getting to something.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is huge. This is
Right.
huge. So, like I said, there's many reasons for why resistance comes up or why
Hmm.
resistance will stop us. And
Hmm.
one of them is what I call undeserving. So a lot of people don't feel deserving of success. And although they want it and they're working hard for it, there's another part that's deep down that feels like they can't have it, shouldn't have it, or that they're being bad or selfish for having it. And that part doesn't make itself known. It's very subtle and it's very quiet. It only shows up in our challenges that we're experiencing or in
Yeah.
our sabotage. And so, yes, that does come up. A lot of times people do work hard, they get the success, they get to a great plateau, and either they'll sabotage themselves or they'll stop doing what got them there and they'll start to fall back. And it usually comes down because, like I said, there's this deep down feeling that they don't deserve that. And a lot of this deserving comes from, again, from our upbringing. It can come from peers and bullies making fun of us. It can come from teachers saying our work wasn't good. It could come from our own parents. It could also come from religion. A lot of people grew up with religious backgrounds that almost shamed having things, having material success,
Yeah.
and made them feel like they were selfish for doing it. And again, those things don't go away. They stay inside us and they run and control our lives. And again, it's hard to see a lot of how our unconscious activities are controlling our conscious thoughts and drives. So that undeserving is a big piece. And the reason I made that expression is because in my work, it comes up a lot. Almost most people who are struggling have some sort of feelings of undeserving inside. And when I use the word undeserving, it may not fully encapsulate what I'm talking about because it's hard to put words to a feeling. But this isn't an undeserving of like a conscious level, oh, I don't deserve that. It's a very deep rooted feeling that all of our desires filter through. And a lot of times when we don't decide to move forward on an opportunity or we make things much more difficult than it needs to be, for
Hmm.
example, going into intense perfection or going into other forms of tricks of resistance, or if we're constantly moving forward and back, it's usually undeserving at play. There's a battle between the person and themselves inside. They really want this thing, but then undeserving is really putting the brakes in their lives and pulling out all the stops to keep them from getting that thing or keeping that thing or from going to the next level.
Okay. Yes. So now we've been talking about like pretty much identifying or the certain types of thing that's holding us back, of the whys, the internal
The
resistance of
causes of
everything.
resistance.
So other than them identifying, because you said some of it goes real deep, they not even realizing they doing it, or so how can I fix something that I don't even know what's going on? So talk about if you working with somebody who coming to you to help them with their whys to go forward, whatever that case may be, how do they overcome it? How do they not necessarily identify, but how do you work with them to achieve, what overcome their whys, the reason what the internal resistance that is, or the
Yeah,
breakthrough.
so working with me one-on-one is really the best way or the most beneficial, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to say this as a way to sell my service.
Oh, that's
And
shameless plug.
yeah, that's the word I was trying to go. It's
Yeah,
not a shameless plug, and the reason
yeah.
for that is because I have developed a technique that helps
Mm-hmm.
people go into their unconscious mind to see
Mm-hmm.
their causes of resistance.
Yeah.
So when I was doing my work and I was working through my own challenges and difficulties and whatnot, I came across a lot of coaches and mentors and gurus and masters, and they were always telling me what my problem was and what I needed
Mm-hmm.
to do to fix it.
Right.
And I would put in a lot of effort to follow their advice. And although I may get results, oftentimes that I didn't. And in frustration, I realized if my issues are in my head, why don't I just go there for the answers? So I figured out a way to disengage the unconscious mind. I can guide clients into their unconscious to see what their resistance are. And we work on their resistance at the unconscious level. And this is the reason this is so effective is because as we're learning, the human brain is fascinatingly complex. Many psychologists and even physicists say that it is the pinnacle of complexity in the known universe, more complex than planets, stars, and even airplanes. And because it's so complex, no one person can know all of your issues. Even if you were studying the mind, behavior, and psychology since you were born until you were very old, you might just scratch the surface of understanding the brain. In fact, there are millions of psychologists and people studying the mind, and we're still just, learn know very little about it. So because of its complex nature, sure, we can go to different people and they might tell us, well, you gotta work on your beliefs. You gotta work on your identity. You gotta move past through your demographics, because that can
Mm-hmm.
be a thing that plays into our resistance. But they might be right or they might not. They're
Mm-hmm.
telling you that because that might have been an issue for them, or that's their specialty, but they might not hit up on all of it. So if we can just go directly into the mind of the person, that's the most direct way because then we work on what their real issues are. And because we work on it at the unconscious level, we can overcome the resistance much quicker. What I mean by that is even though you learn your cause of resistance, you might learn, oh, it's because of trauma from when I was young, or I had bullies that harassed me. And now, anytime that I want to do something, my mind thinks about what they will think, and it creates this intense fear, so I can't move forward. Once you realize that, it doesn't really change anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we can go into the unconscious and release those responses, then the next time the desire comes up, it doesn't filter through all the past, so they can more easily do it. So that's the one-on-one that I do. It's
Okay.
the technique is it's pretty involved to kind of go over it in this podcast, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe on a separate episode. But that's how I do it. And again, the mind is complex. And I know sometimes people just want that quick answer or that quick takeaway they can apply. But it's really important to understand that when we're working on resistance, we want to work on the exact issue that's causing the resistance. There's a lot of reasons for resistance I mentioned, and there isn't one fit all approach. We have to use a different approach for different causes. And some approach may not work for another and actually make the other approach different. Again, I didn't make the rules, I just help people follow them. And although people do want that quick fixes, you got to ask yourself, how has those quick fixes and quick takeaways been helpful for you? They likely haven't. And it's because we're not going into the depths and working within the depths and complexity of the human mind. And I think someone who has strong resistance, that's what they're going to require.
Right. Okay. So tell me, like, why did you get in this line of work for as helping people with their internal resistance, and like what prompted this for you to start doing this type of thing?
Yeah, so I'm sure you come across a lot of people who will tell you they got into it because they struggled with it.
Hmm. Okay.
And it was something that they felt called to work through in their own, or were forced to work through it for their own self. And then in doing so, they essentially became very knowledgeable on the topic. And that more or less was the case for me. As I mentioned, as far back as I was young, I wanted to do more. I wanted to have more. I wanted to be more. I wanted to have more success. And although I've had my fair share of success, in a lot of ways, I felt like I fell short, or the success was much more difficult or stressful than it needed to be. And I always wondered why that was. Like, why is it if I want to do something, I can't? And that question just always lingered in my mind. And as I was doing all the different work, whether it was with books and coaches or seminars, or I've traveled all over the world
Yeah, I
doing my
see.
inner work. The more I just started learning, oh my gosh, there is a part of us that is designed to hold us back. And it sounds crazy that we ourselves are holding our own selves back, but that's really what's going on. And once I started kind of sharing this concept to other people, it really resonated with them. People really love it because what I'm realizing, the more podcasts that I go on, is everyone has a resistance in some area. Even if someone's really successful, they still have resistance because they either can't get to the next level, or they have some struggle in some other part of their life. So they might be successful in business, but they struggle in relationships. Or they may have a lot of good friends and they do well in school, but then when it comes to the job, there's a lot of resistance. They have a hard time finding a job. So yeah. And the thing that makes me the most sad is there are a lot of talented people out there who aren't living up to their potential, not because they're not capable or they're not smart enough. They're in fact
Mm.
more than capable and more than smart enough, but they take on less work, or they take on work not to their abilities because resistance won't allow them. And it's really sad to see.
Yeah. Okay. While you were talking, I was thinking about this. Now, let's say the person got to a level of success, whatever the case may be, artist, entertaining, job, they doing well on all fronts and so forth. Do you think they can get to, and we talked about comfort zone again, do you think they can get to a level of complacency, like where they got to the top, they don't think it's nothing else for them and so forth? Because I was thinking about what Will Smith said when Will Smith was talking about he wished everybody that would have the money that they want so they can see that it don't really mean anything to a sense. So he said, I forgot what it was, a term like, they have, you got the lowest of lows, but but it's something about the tip top or
Yeah.
whatever. That you get to a point where you don't got everything that you want to have, you don't did everything that you want to do, and so on and so forth. And then you get to a level, you still not happy, to a point. Do you think this comes to that, why you don't reach everything, but do you think it's a pursuit to really just be happy in a certain sense, and we don't really know what that happiness is until we go within ourselves? We talked about stuff, intrinsic forces that influence our decisions and our actions, but do you think that happens when a person gets to the top and got everything, that they still not happy, or whatever? What would be the reasons for that, and how could that be overcome?
Oof. You opened up an amazing can of worms. You're asking really good questions that really allow me to dive deeper into this topic. I want to first start by saying that a lot of the reasons people are even listening to this podcast, or the reason you wanted to interview me talking
Hmm.
about internal
Yeah.
resistance is because people want to do more. They want to do more in their life, but they're feeling stuck. Why is it that they want to do more? Well, they want to do more so they can have a better life. They can have things that can be enjoyable and have more joy for them. And they think that the thing that they're trying to do is what will get them the joy. And I had never heard of Will Smith's quote. And I'm glad you said that because I wholeheartedly agree. I really do wish that people could have all that money that they're seeking, because they will know that it's not about the money. But when we don't have the money, the way our mind works, it makes us feel like it is about the money and that
Mm-hmm.
we need the money. And because we don't have the money, we can't have that happiness or that joy that we're seeking. Money is one part of it because it helps us not have so much stress about paying the bills and providing and things of that nature. Once we can pay the bills and and provide for ourselves, then our awareness opens up to these other things that we don't have. And this is really challenging, and I'm glad we brought it up. But the way the brain works, wants and desires never end. They were
Yeah.
never meant to. For my own self, I kind of know why, but as soon as you get that thing, your brain will feel satisfied for a little bit and then want
Mm-hmm.
that next thing.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody that has something that you don't. With over a
Mm-hmm.
billion people in this world, with the amount of wealth that there is, even the most wealthy person can't have everything that everyone else has.
Mm-hmm.
They might have that, they might have the money, they might have the car, they might have the girl or the guy, but
Mm-hmm.
then they'll have see someone has something that they don't. And the brain will create a want and desire for it. And when there is a want and desire, there's a feeling of lack inside, so it creates pain. In fact, the part of the brain that creates wants and desires, it's completely unrestrained. It's creating endless wants, one after another, at a pace faster than any one person can achieve. Even if we lived multiple lives, we couldn't achieve, let alone enjoy, all the wants that our brain is producing just in a month or just in a year. And so Will Smith is 100% right. We see evidence of that. People who are the echelon of success, whether as a movie star, um, in corporate America, in
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship, a lot of them are dying inside. They're depressed, they commit suicide, and we're always left wondering why they had everything they could want it. Well, everything that people who don't have think would make us happy. And when we do get it, then our brain just thinks about other stuff that we want. In fact, I want to do an exercise for everyone listening here.
Okay.
You could follow along or not, but close your eyes and think about everything that it is that you want right now. Maybe you want that special someone. Maybe you want that big house, that prestigious job, or maybe you just want a lot of money in your bank account so you don't have to have that job. Maybe there was a toy that you never got as a kid and you're still yearning for it. Maybe you want to see someone that you haven't seen in a while or someone that you're not able to see anymore. So, whatever it is, I want you to hold a picture of all of it, not just one, but everything that you want right now. As you think about it, I want you to imagine having it all. So now you do have it all. Now I want you to realize, and you'll notice this feeling that you'll still want more. You can open your eyes and come back. Yeah, we'll always want
Yeah.
more.
Right.
Whatever we think will make us happy,
Yeah.
once we get it, it'll satisfy us for a little bit, but then we'll want the next thing.
Yeah.
And this is one of the biggest challenge of our wanting mechanism is that when it creates a want for something, it makes it seem like it will be fulfilling. It
Uh-huh.
makes it seem like once we have it, our life would be great and we won't need it anymore. And that's how it gets us to chase that thing.
Okay.
But then when we do get it, again, our brain starts becoming aware of our other worries and things that we're lacking. So I know this was a long-winded answer, but I think it's really important for people to understand.
That's cool. I mean, while you talking about it, I'm thinking about Gary V now. Are you familiar with Gary V?
He is a big marketer.
Right. He was talking about he want to own the Jets. He was like, so here's a goal. He said he probably will never attain, but the goal is there, so it will keep him going. So do you think in those times it's a healthy why or internal, it's not an internal resistance, but I always hear, and I said this too before with fitness as well. You always got to have something to work on, else you'll get stagnant and everything with what you're doing. So, do you think it's healthy to move in that manner where it still keeps you going, won't and you won't get to a level of complacency and everything, and kind of regress and so forth?
This is a reason why when people retire, they go back to work.
Right.
And this is
I
another
don't. I
good.
don't. I don't gave you a couple of take a breath moments, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. And these are
Yeah.
really important. Again,
Right.
it's giving me an opportunity to really dive into this topic
Okay.
because a lot of podcasts I've been on haven't been asking the real good questions. They ask good
Okay.
questions, but
I
they
appreciate it.
haven't asked these ones that helps me go deeper in directions that I haven't before. So this is one of the challenges of being human. There are a lot of challenges that we have, and being a fulfilled, healthy human being requires treading on a lot of thin lines.
Mm,
And one of the thin lines is what you mentioned, because the way the human body works, it's that it's either growing or it's regressing. There's no in between. There's no, I'll work on this skill for 3 months and keep it forever. There's no, I will work out for 6 months and be fit or thin for the rest of my life. That's not how our mind and body are built. It's if we work on a skill for 3 months, we'll get good at it. But as soon as we stop, we start losing it. We can work out for 6 months and achieve our fitness goal. But as soon as we stop, we start to regress.
mm,
So there's no staying in between, which is really important.
mm,
And so if we're always going to be regressing, it's really important that we continue doing what we're doing
mm,
or doing the thing that got us a success. And if we keep doing what we got as a success, then that means we'll always be growing. And if
mm.
we're always growing, it means that when it helps to always have the next milestone and the next after that. It's just, it's almost inescapable. You really
Right.
can't escape it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so, yeah. So I know there is a lot of talk about having enough. Like, when is it that'll be enough? And not to be so selfish. It's like, hey, if you had a nice car, a house, a good job, or income, why keep going after for more? It's just the way that we're built. But there is a healthier way to do it. We can do it in a way where we come with an expectation of what we're doing and why. We know we have enough now. We can be happy and we allow ourselves to be happy. But we also know that if we don't continue moving forward or building ourselves, we'll
Mm,
start to regress. So then we set the next milestones not as a way to achieve happiness or to achieve something that we don't have, but just to maintain that consistency and that discipline and drive to keep us in a better, healthier, more happy and fulfilled state.
okay. I agree. That's all. So definitely. So that goes to, I'm guessing I was teaching that and not realizing I was teaching that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? You always want to have
yeah,
you always want to be working for something, because as soon as you have had a lot of, well, not a lot of clients, but just people come to me in general. Man, I got the weight off and everything. I thought I was through, and, and they stopped, and then got gain it all the way back. I said, like, now is you got to get to a maintenance stage.
yeah,
Or if a person like got to a level of strength that that person want to get to, and then they don't think it's nothing else. Okay, well, yeah, just have something else you need to work on. It don't have to be anything big or anything like that, but just have something. There's always something to work on when you come to fitness.
yeah,
And I say, once you have that, that will keep you coming into the gym. Because I have
yeah.
heard people like, how you come into the gym, how you work out so much and do it for year in and year out. That's would be my main answer is always have something you want to work on. Because once you reach that goal, it's gonna be something else you need to,
You start
that
to
that'll
fall
keep you.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you start to fall back.
And I want to share two important things about this. This is a concept that I heard a long time ago. It's that success is much harder to keep than to achieve.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Six, yeah, success is already hard to achieve. I mean, it
Yeah,
takes a lot of work.
yeah,
And again, whatever success you're a
Mm-hmm.
person is chasing, whether it's a student trying to pass school with good grades, whether it's someone at work trying to climb the ladder, whether it's an entrepreneur, someone in fitness. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of time and consistency to get to where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get there, it feels like, okay, we could stop because we're there.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people do. They
Right.
stop putting in that effort and then they slide. And this is where that yo yo dieting pattern comes up, or
Yeah.
yo yo in
Okay.
anything.
Glad you connected it. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
They're putting in all the effort. And once they stop, they regress and they got to put in all that effort and they
Mm-hmm.
yo yo back and forth. And this is why I say you're either growing or regressing. There's no in
Mm-hmm.
between. Because as soon as you stop, you regress. But if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll always be growing.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of have this option of like, do we want to get to somewhere and regress or do you want to keep growing? And that's not what people are told. A lot of
Okay.
marketing, especially on television, they're all talking about getting to that one destination.
Yeah.
And once you get there, everything will take care of itself. In fact, it's been ingrained into us since children with all these Disney stories and other stories of happily ever afters. It's like you work hard and you get to this point, whether
Mm-hmm.
in your relationship or after, but it's not the real life. And people get really disappointed when they get to that goal and either it doesn't fulfill them or they stop doing what they're doing and they start regressing. And I really want to drive this point home. So I'm going to I'm going to ask you a question. And this is going to be kind of off the wall, but I'll bring it back. So, do you know what some of the biggest challenges that astronauts have in space?
You need an answer or just a hypothetical?
Hypothetical, well, just throw out some answers as
Okay.
your audience is thinking about it.
Do I know? Repeat
Yeah.
the question one more time.
So, what are some of the biggest challenges astronauts face in space? Like no oxygen,
That they can face. Yeah. No oxygen. No fuel to get back home.
yeah, no food,
No
intense amounts
food.
of radiation.
Right.
So, those are obvious ones that we all know about. But there's one that doesn't get talked about, and it's called muscle atrophy. Because there's no gravity in space, astronauts lose up to 10 to 20% of their muscle and bone mass in just like a week. It's wild. Without the force of gravity pushing against us, our body will literally
Yeah.
wither away. Okay. So that's how much we're either growing or regressing. Like
Okay. I
we
like where you
actually
went
need
there.
gravity
Yeah.
just to be able to maintain the body that we have. And if we build something more, then we need to keep doing that to maintain it. Otherwise, it does go away. And it doesn't just mean in terms of our physical, but also our mental and our skills and anything. And it's just
Yeah.
the way that we're born. And if a person understand that, because it took me a while to understand this, and if I understood it or learned it earlier, I would have made different life choices. Because in the past, I was putting in all this effort to get to a place. And once I got there, I thought that's all I needed to do. And then I kept regressing, losing what I learned, forgetting what I picked up, and then essentially wasting all that time. But once I understood that if I'm not continuing to do what it is I'm doing, I will start to lose it. I shifted how I showed up and approached things. And now I don't try to come in with a big A game intermittently. I try to show up consistently every day, small, medium effort, because that's going to get the most progress and that's going to be the most sustainable for the long term.
Okay. Okay. I like that. I like what you did there. So you gotta have you can't go too far without your anchor in a sense, is what you're saying. Am I saying am I reading that right?
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
just
with the
saying
gravity
that,
part of thing?
yeah. What I'm saying is that because of gravity, we lose our muscle and bone mass. That means we always need to kind of, so more or less, astronauts spend 2 hours every day working out. Nobody talks about this. 2 hours every day, 6 days a week, just to maintain what they have. And so, in order to maintain the skill and success that we've achieved, we have to continue working on it, is what I'm getting at.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, I got you. All right, definitely, man. I like that. So the books. How many big books did you say you wrote? You wrote?
I got 12 books now,
Okay, 12 books. Oh, you've been busy with the books.
all pre-ChatGPT, so I want you to know.
Okay. I mean, I guess it's important to say now,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everything. If folks be thinking, yeah, stuff like that, and I can attest to me been doing this over 12 years before Chat GPT. I use it, but like I say, I've been doing this before then. So,
yeah.
but yeah, a lot of folks write books and or
I mean, you can
probably
write books
now,
in a week now. Back then, it took me
yeah, that's what I'm
years.
saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, and but you can, I guess if you get somebody to proofread, I say you can really kind of tell with the wording that AI uses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But okay, so but with your books, like, can you shout out a couple of them? Like, what are they about? Maybe people want to look at them and so forth.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I had, I'm traveling right now, so normally
Mm,
my books would be behind me on my shelf. My most successful book right now is Speed Reading. Learn to read a 200-page book in 1 hour. It's got over 5,000 reviews on
th-
Amazon,
this the one you wrote? Okay, okay.
and I can almost guarantee it can double and triple a person's reading speed in a matter of minutes with better comprehension, which is why it's got so many reviews. I have another book on memory called Everyday Memory. I really highly recommend people read that book because I talk about the tricks of resistance. And our resistance doesn't want us to do something. It's not going to tell us that it doesn't want to. It uses
Uh,
tricks. One
okay.
of those tricks is makes us forget. It makes us forget our goals. It makes us forget our commitment. And not only does it make us forget our commitments and goals, but the steps to get there. So it makes us forget our appointments, um, you know, telling ourselves that we're going to go to the gym on this day and that day. We may forget to
Hmm.
do that. We may
Yeah.
even forget to bring the materials that's going to be help us successful. And as long and as soon as we forget, we can't do the thing. And because we can't do the thing, resistance wins in keeping us in stuck in the way we are. And that book is one of my proudest books because it really dives in to the complexities of memory and why we remember things and why we don't, and what we can do to make sure we remember more. And I really believe that a lot of our success is dependent on our ability to remember the commitments that we've made and the things that are going to allow us to stick with those commitments. A lot of times when people fall off, it's not so much because they don't have the skill, that they don't have the ability, or that they don't, what you call it, have some other limitation. It's simply because they're not remembering their commitments, especially when they need to. So they might remember to go to the gym when they're at work, but after work, the memory of the
Yeah.
gym won't come up in their mind. So they'll just drive home and sit in front of the television. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So that's
And I think it's probably come out of like a little bit of like routine. If it ain't in your normal routine, you ain't really thinking about it as much. I
yeah,
think.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's and one of the suggestions I do give is when people want to know or keep in mind what it is that they want to do to make sure they succeed in it, how can they remember it? Well, one is to write it down and regularly review it. Two is to put it into a routine. The more you can stick to a routine, uh, a set of items that you do at a certain time, and the more you'll just kind of remember what it is that you need to do and when. And
Yeah.
then the third is self-talk,
Okay.
is turn what you want to do into statements and repeat them regularly.
Okay.
For example, when I wanted to become a better communicator, I learned the things that I needed to do to be able to communicate better. And I turned it into self-talk statements that I repeat even to this day. I'll say things like, I am an excellent communicator. I easily communicate my thoughts, ideas, feelings, experiences, and more. I can write and verbalize anything. And because I say that a lot, I feel
Mhm.
like I have become much more effective in my verbal communication.
Okay. I like this. So not just helping with internal resistance, you do focus on other things too and helping people out in other aspects,
Yeah.
whether it be, mindset, comprehension and everything. Just really being it sounds like more so your focus is on like being more intuitive with self.
Yeah, it's more, I mean, majority of my work is on resistance, but there's
Hmm.
so many pieces to it. Memory
Hmm.
is a big piece to it. Learning is a big piece to it. The emotion aspect is a big piece. I do a lot of work in helping people access and process and release emotions around a lot of difficulties and challenges they're experiencing. So the work is all around resistance, but there's so many facets. But I started first with the books. I wrote the books.
Hmm.
Then I developed the concept of resistance. And now I'm doing this one-on-one work where I take people into their unconscious and do the work inside their unconscious on both the unconscious and emotional level.
Okay. Okay, cool. And so is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't discussed here today?
And the last thing I would just say, I want people to know that desire doesn't equate to action. Just because they want to do something doesn't mean they'll take the necessary steps to do it. Although our desire can make it seem like we will, will face or hit up this thing that I call resistance. And if we're not prepared for resistance, we can really get thrown off course when we hit up against it. But if we know that resistance will come up, then it'll make it far more likely that we can move past it and achieve the success that we desire.
Okay, cool, cool. All right. So what would you say other than that? What would you say would be the biggest takeaway out of everything that we talked about here today? For its internal resistance, for its mindset, holding us back, fear, guilt, shame, stuff like that, and just really going for our whys and so forth. What would you say be the biggest takeaway that people can get from this?
I would like to say that most things in life aren't hard. Sitting down to read a book isn't really that difficult. Sitting down to study for an exam or going after our fitness, health, financial goals, it's just a matter of taking the steps. What makes it really difficult is all the internal stuff going on inside. The thoughts saying that we're not good enough, the feelings saying that it'll be too difficult, a lot of the challenges that we have inside. And what's even more is it can seem like it's the outside world that's making it challenging, but it's really the inside. And the good news is that with the inside, you have a lot of control over it. You can work through if you choose to. It's not always easy, but if you choose to work through it, you can make the changes that you want. So anytime a person is feeling like they're getting into drama or a victim, that things aren't going their way, it's more often than not something that's going on internally for them and not something that's outside of their control.
So we can end it there, man. And I'll say, man,
Yeah.
I I appreciate you for coming onto the show, man. It definitely been some eye openers for me and everything, and have you with some breathtaking moments where you had
Yeah.
to take a step back. Like, okay, let's dive in on it.
Yeah.
So definitely, I appreciate you for coming on the show. Definitely would love to have you back. Again, I would say shout out, again where people can find you and maybe want to take in your service, get your books, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So I've got 3 free gifts for all the listeners who stayed all the way here. One is called Prompt Engineering for Your Mind. People don't realize, but our brain was original ChatGPT, and we can prompt it just like ChatGPT to not only give us useful solutions, but also have us acting on the things that we want to do. So that's gift number one. Gift number two, I have a guide on ending procrastination and sabotage. And then gift number three is also a guide on burnout. And they can get all three of those on my website at kamknight.com. And then they get the books on my website. They can learn about my course. But if they want to do that one-on-one work with me, they can email me at mentor@kamknight.com.
All right, cool, cool. I mean, on top of the gems you just dropped during the whole episode, you
Yeah.
dropping more trinkets and more gems and stuff like that. I love it. All right, cool. All right, man. So we're gonna get on out of here. So I'm your host, Trader Fit Artist, and who been with me is Kam Knight. We out of here, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. If you're looking for fitness coaching to help you reach your goals, want to join our animated network for fitness guidance, collaborations, networking, and community, or are interested in being a guest on the show, check out the links in the description. Stay creative, stay fit, and we'll holler at you next time.